Slow progress is absolutely not a stall or a plateau in the gym. Hey, everybody, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. This is a topic that creates a lot of confusion because so many people have run novice programs out there. They've run linear novice programs such as Starting Strength, Strong Lifts, any of the ones that I've put out over the years. The first one I actually put out in 2012, so it's been 12 years ago. It got published in 2013. Muscle and Strength. So, you see all these linear programs for novices, and it creates this false idea in people's head that progress should always be continual and measurable on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis for the rest of your life. And the reality is that's simply not true. And just because you haven't added weight to the bar or reps for a little while does not actually mean that you have truly plateaued. Okay, and people again get really confused by this idea, and it comes back to that fact that when everyone ran Starting Strength or my original Ice Cream Fitness 5x5, they were putting 5-10 pounds on lifts every single week. I had people who ran the original one of that, and they were like, I literally went from a 200 squat for 5 to a 300 pound squat for 5 in like 6 months. Okay, that's crazy, right? That is literally insane. That is insane. Well, not literally, it's figuratively. You guys know what I mean. Okay, but people did it on those programs. And, that becomes then the benchmark. And then people have this assumption that because progressive overload is part of your gains, that they're like, well, we should be making at least noticeable gains every single week. And if not every week, then at least every month. And if I haven't put weight on the bar in 5 weeks, I must be plateaued. Okay? Right? And that's how they see it. But that's simply not true, is it? And what people need to think about how slow a drug-free lifter gains muscle after the first few years in the gym. Okay, when you're a novice, there have been actual data showing gaining up to a kilogram of muscle per month the first few months can absolutely be done. Can absolutely be done. That's about 2 pounds, a little over 2 pounds for people who use Freedom units. Now, keeping in mind some of your initial gains are neural gains, but then after that, usually your progressive overload, once you have kind of settled into doing the kind of the rep scheme that you're doing on exercises and you don't change exercises, you don't really see a lot of motor pattern learning. You don't see a lot of neural drive. You don't see all these factors. If you've been doing heavy fives for a while on squats or even heavy singles for a while on the back squat, right? You've kind of exhausted those. And at that point, you're simply maintaining that skill, right? That skill of lifting a heavy weight in that sort of intensity range. On any given exercise, that's a skill. And if you change exercises, of course, you make quick progress again for a week or two. Why? Well, because it's a new movement. You're having to learn it, right? And so there's a learning curve. But it doesn't mean that you're actually getting stronger at the muscular level. It just means that you're learning something new. But if you're still doing that same movement, you're then reliant upon muscle mass. And stop and think about the muscle growth involved with a kilogram of muscle, right? Because a lot of times that's done, and then people are like, I was putting at least 5 pounds a week on my lift, so that's like 20 pounds. Okay, that's 20 pounds. So let's say you put 20 pounds on your squat in a month. Now that's done quicker in the first couple of months, but once you've been running a program like that, it slows down, right? And before long, it starts getting to where, 10 pounds or about 5 kilograms becomes your normal for a month. And sometimes that can be sustained for several months. But that's once the neural component is done. And now we're just using muscle growth to drive the progression. In other words, as you gain muscle from the training hard, your ability to lift more weight for the same amount of reps goes up. So you think about that 2 pounds of muscle growth that a novice might be gaining. Right? If that translates to 10 pounds on the bar, on a big lift, like a small lift, probably not. It might only translate to 1 pound on a curl or a tricep extension or whatever. Well, once you've been training a few years, gaining a couple pounds of muscle could take you 6 months. It could take you 12 months. That's just the nature of muscle growth. It's on a diminished return. So if it takes you 6 to 12 months to gain 2 full pounds of muscle, you should expect about a 10-pound increase on your 5-rep max, or your 8-rep max, or your 10-rep max. Well, how about those smaller movements, 1 or 2 pounds in 6 to 12 months? So realistically, if you can curl 50 pounds for 10 strict reps and then you fail on the 11th, how much overall size are you going to have to gain before your biceps themselves get big enough to increase that to 55 or to be able to get 12 or 13 reps? Well, that's like 6 months worth of work, or a year. Same thing on your other movements. Putting 10 pounds on your bench or your squat is 6 months to a year, depending upon, what you're doing with your diet and everything. Are you really plateaued, or are you just growing that slow? In other words, 10 pounds, if it takes you a year, that is less than a pound a month being added to, say, your 5 or your 8 rep set. That is less than a pound. That comes out to even over 6 months, 5 pounds. So if you're stuck at you can't get more than 5 reps with that weight, well, yeah, it should take you 5 or 6 months at that point. That's literally what it should take. That's not a plateau. That just means you're not gaining muscle. And then guys are like, well, it must mean I just need to bulk faster. Well, yeah, that'll create some extra leverages, some extra water retention and stuff. But it's not necessarily gaining more muscle. And on some lifts, that'll cut the range of motion. It'll make the squish better out of the squat. It'll maybe reduce the range of motion to your bench because you're getting a little fatter, a little thicker. But is it really due to extra muscle growth? Probably not. So people need to understand that when you've been training a while, progress can be linear. People will say, well, it's not going to be linear. It is. It's just going to be much, much, much slower. And every year, it's going to go slower and slower and slower. And that's okay. We need to understand and we need to accept that. And people need to not panic every time. Man, I haven't been able to add a rep. In 2 months, I've been able to add 5 pounds for my 5s or my 6s or 8s in 2 months. I must be completely plateaued. I need to change something. No, you need to be patient. Keep putting in the work. Keep making sure that your volumes are sufficient, your recovery is sufficient, your diet is sufficient, and just keep being consistent and be patient. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.